Hey guys, it's Sean down here in the Soundcave. So me and Mike have been putting together, we got about 3 or 4 podcasts now with Melomaniacs. And, I wanted to give, some of our listeners an idea of what you're listening to, what the Soundcave looks like a little bit, a little more in depth into how we're listening to music when we're down here and we're spinning records and streaming stuff, and what the basis of our sound systems are. I have a few down here. I'm going to go over just a few of them, what I got going on down here. So my basement was basically a non-livable space before COVID-19. I was just down here for storage. There was shit everywhere. Definitely not somewhere where anybody used, to do anything. So once I had to find a home office, move all my stuff down here, my computer and my monitor and all that stuff, that's where it started. And then around the same time, I got into audio equipment and the whole audiophile journey. And, I just started compiling things. Started out with, old vintage Pioneer receivers and Sony receivers. And I had a Nico at one point. Nice Yamaha 820. I've since sold them or given them away to family members or friends to just enjoy the pure listening experience of vintage audio equipment, in its glory. I would pick them up on eBay, clean them up, spruce them up, and not do anything major. Just clean, the pots and the caps and, the switches and stuff, get all the static out of there because dust is the enemy of audio equipment. So, I'd gone through all those, and then I delved into some desktop setups, smaller Class D amplifiers, which I'll get into a little bit later. And then eventually I fell into the deep, dark world of tube amplification. I did do a tube video earlier, a couple months back, on my single-ended 8 watt per channel Nobsound tube amp, and that really made me happy. I still have it. I still play it a lot to this day. It's part of my. I have it set up as like a nice little vinyl setup next to my home office setup. I have a total of 3 audio setups down here, so I'll go through. The first one, is behind me. This is the big boy setup. This is where you're going to hear a lot of the music that we play on the show. On our podcast, plays out of this system, these speakers, digitally streaming most of the time for, on the side of quickness, because, we don't have a lot of time to be getting up and down and switching out records and stuff. And a lot of times in our podcast, we're just blowing through different things and, going back and forth through different artists and stuff. So streaming is the way to do it. A lot of purists and a lot of audiophiles are not big into the streaming thing. They want to keep everything vinyl, keep everything CDs. Why limit your audio world to that? I love vinyl. I love playing my CDs on my CD player. There's nothing like it as far as clarity and keeping true to the sound. But streaming is pretty damn close nowadays, especially if you get the right streaming source and have everything set up just right. So what I did down here, if you look behind me, so streaming sources, behind me, so right here, this guy right here, this is a Schiit Modius DAC, so it's a digital analog converter. Schiit, Schiit, is an American company. They do tons of audiophile equipment, DACs, amplifiers, Phono amps, you name it. If it's techie gadget stuff and it's fun and it looks really nice, they're a great company to buy from. I've had nothing but good experiences with their DACs and stuff like that. So this one, because I'm running it through a tube amp over here, I'm not too worried about complete digital, perfection, because tubes distort things by nature. But you get pretty damn close. And this is an entry level, pretty basic, balanced DAC that has multiple inputs, optical, coax, USB. Now, right now I'm using it as a coax input from a cool little toy that is all the way over here. It's a tiny little piece of equipment. So basically it's a computer board that I sourced. It's called a Raspberry Pi. You can buy them for anywhere from basic Raspberry Pi is 35 bucks. It's just one single circuit board. It's basically a mini computer that you can put up to 4 gigs or 8 gigs of RAM on. And you could run a whole Linux system out of it and have your own mini computer if you hook it up to a monitor. It's pretty impressive stuff. But what I learned is that you can actually use these as a mini Wi-Fi signal source that you can get from your servers, such as Spotify, Tidal, Deezer. You know, the sound, I wasn't sure because I was using, before that I was using a Chromecast audio. And before that I was using Bluetooth receivers. But gotten away from Bluetooth because it's lossy. And then when I got to a, you know, when I use the Chromecast audio, it's the same idea. You're taking a Wi-Fi, not Bluetooth signal directly from the server and funneling it into whatever you're playing it out of. I like to take it from that source into a DAC, a digital analog converter. So it takes the digital signal, puts it into analog form, fixes all those ones and zeros, and makes it sound nice. You can get just as good, if not better, than CD quality sound out of any of these things. So basically I run, you know, I had a Chromecast audio. They're 35 bucks when they were first sold. Now they're running for 50, 60 bucks. So I ended up buying like 3 of them and using them in setups upstairs. And actually I used the most in my garage setup because I've completely gotten away from Bluetooth because I feel like it degrades the sound a bit. Most people are going to be happy with Bluetooth receiver, and that's fine. But I find that the Wi-Fi is much better, and all you need is your phone as a basically user interface. So what you do is, if you get the Raspberry Pi, you buy a audio hat that goes on top of the circuit board, and actually it's supposed to do is take care of sound and clean up the digital sound in order for you to send it out digitally to a digital analog converter. I know that sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo. It's called an Allo One is what I use as my hat. And then basically when you put the system together, you load up an operating system on a SD micro card, and it runs, so I'm running Volumio, which is basically the server that takes, it's the software program. It's an audiophile software program that you load into this little tiny mini computer, and then it allows you to tap into Tidal and Spotify, or at least those are the ones that I use. The sound quality is fantastic. I really had, once I got it figured out, you need to have a little bit of tech savvy. I'm going to warn you there. It can be a little bit frustrating, but once you get it figured out, it's rock solid. If you don't want to go through all that trouble, most people will be more than happy with a Chromecast audio. They don't produce them anymore. They stopped last year. So if you can pick them up on eBay for 50, 60 bucks, do it. Totally worth it if you're looking to upgrade your streaming experience. So basically that, you know, that little guy over there is a little computer, and then next to it is a linear power supply. So what it does is it isolates the USB power supply, because this Schiit Modius over here runs off of USB power only, and it does not have a discrete power supply. So I run it off of that. So that little thing sends it clean power, and it also sends clean power. It has 2 USB ports, sends a clean linear power supply signal into the Raspberry Pi. So you're totally just like narrowing down every little bit and getting rid of all of your EMI, electromagnetic interference and whatnot, cleaning up the sound as much as possible before you send it out. So that brings us to the system. The piece de resistance is basically my Willsenton R8, which you're seeing right behind me here, this big boy. The Willsenton R8 just came out like last year. It is without a doubt my favorite piece of audio equipment that I've bought in the last year. I definitely spent the most money on it, but it was well worth it. If you're going to get into tube amplification and the whole tube journey, basically it runs, so you can switch it between 2 to 4 different types of power tubes just by flipping a switch in the back. You can go from EL34s, that nice, warm, huge, mid, syrupy sound, to a KT88 or 6550 tube, which has more of that airy top end and low bottom slam. It's going to give you just more dynamic sound, and you're able to push more watts. This thing runs, you can either put it in triode mode, which is a, more of a low key but more musical sound. It's 25 watts a channel in triode. And then in ultra linear, when you really want to play some slamming shit with the KT88s or the 6550s or whatever, you put it into ultra linear and it runs at 45 watts per channel. That doesn't sound like a lot, but 25 or 45 watts per channel with a tube amp running through a set of really efficient speakers, you're going to be able to get this place really loud. So that's what I have here. I have a set of Klipsch RP-160Ms. They're basically the predecessor to the RP-600M, which is one of the hottest speakers out there right now for bookshelves. It's a large bookshelf speaker. It's got a 96 dB sensitivity, so it does a lot with a little bit of sound as far as wattage. It does a lot with a little bit of power. You're able to really get that dynamic horn tweeter, just horns. The horn tweeter and Klipsch in general just go with tubes like peanut butter and jelly. I mentioned that before. And these speakers, no matter what I throw at them, they just sound ridiculous. You can get them used online, the RP-160Ms. You can get them for like $350, $375 online now. The one that came after them was the RP-600Ms, the newest version. They're like a $600 to $700 speaker. But these have the same exact specs, maybe a different composite on the tweeter. It doesn't really justify the price, and you can get these in the pretty cherry walnut color, which they discontinued with this line too. So yeah, the RP-600Ms are great. They're the newer ones, but they actually were just on sale on Prime Day for like $430. It was very tempting, but I really don't need them. I have a ton of speakers right now, so not really something that I was going to throw too much money at. I'm kind of good with throwing my money at tubes and different types of tubes for all my tube setups. As far as the Willsenton R8, you can get on China Hi-Fi Audio. For what you would pay, say if I bought that same type of large, powerful tube amp from an American or English supplier, Macintosh or whoever else, Prima Luna, you'd be paying around $5,000 for something like that. This one I was able to get for under $1,000 shipped from China. And I've had zero problems with it. And there's been a lot of rave reviews of it as well online. You can look it up, the Willsenton R8. One of the biggest YouTube reviewers voted it as the amp of the year last year. Just because of its versatility. And it sounds ridiculous for what you're paying. I mean, you're paying for high-end sound at low bottom prices, considering. I mean, for some people, it's going to sound outrageous either way to pay that much for stereo equipment. But if you get into this thing, you start learning stuff, you'll see that it's definitely paid dividends. Hours and hours of listening fun and being able to tube roll as much as you want. It's got 5 different tubes in the preamp stage and then 4 power tubes. So, sky's the limit as far as what you can do. Vintage tubes, new production tubes, whatever you want to throw at it, it's good, it's game. And, I recommend it to anybody that's looking to get into tubes. So that's the big boy. That's the one that gets a lot of play on the show. When I do play vinyl, right now I'm running a Fluance RT-85 turntable. It's their highest level on their line. So it's a full acrylic platter. It comes with an Ortofon Blue cartridge, which is basically half the price of the table itself. They run at $500. You're never going to need another turntable again after that. I love it. It's always going to be my favorite. The tube Phono preamp that's next to it is a little Bear T11. Runs with 4 tubes in it. One's a rectifier, and it has 3 driver tubes, 12 AX7s, and then you have one of them which is I swapped out the Chinese tubes for good new production tubes. Right now I have the Tung Sole 12 AX7 gold pins in it right now, which I like. The Gold Lion 12 AX7s are great. And then I swapped out the rectifier tube to an equivalent vintage new old stock that I bought. They're Russian tubes. The name is escaping me right now of the type of tube that it is, but it definitely made a huge difference in the sound and the clarity. I like it a lot, and I have a few, I have quite a few tube phono preamps, but this one, it's definitely, it's my favorite right now. I also have the, we'll move on. So I'm going to take this off the stand here. Basically what you're seeing here is my single-ended setup. So that's the old Nobsound, and comes with a little Chinese, I put a little Chinese preamp in the middle, and then there next to it is a tube phono preamp. That is the Yaqin MS23B. And then next to that is the Technica LP40WN with an Ortofon blue cartridge. This is kind of like a nice little setup that I have for when I want to listen to quiet, acoustic, female vocalists, classical, jazz, that kind of stuff. The big boy setup is more for, the louder music. And then moving over to here, we have my my home office setup with the this here is a digital analog converter, the SMSL M500. It has MQA decoding, so your title stuff gets decoded, and I can send it from a cord all the way down here into the preamp, and I can feed it right into my single-ended, so I can actually stream music from here to here into my single-ended when I want to listen to title jazz. This is the SMSL DA-8s amplifier. This is a little Class D 80 watt per channel amplifier. It's a beast. And this is an i-Fi Zen DAC, which is another DAC that I use when I'm wanting to use my headphone amplifiers that I have over there. And then this is the home setup. These are the Micca. These are the RB42s, the famous RB42s that get sold out every couple months. For this tiny little speaker to put out the amount of sound and bass that it does is absolutely ridiculous. They're like 150 bucks on Amazon. I think right now they're still available. Get them while you can. If you want a kick-ass home theater speaker, or I'm sorry, office desktop speaker, throw them on some stands like they are here and just jam away. I actually have a subwoofer running down here underneath. It's a little 8-inch Polk that helps out. Really don't need it with these speakers because they killer bass. I also have a subwoofer back here, which is kind of sacrilege with a single-ended tube amp, but whatever. Have fun. These are some of my headphones. Whole other wormhole. But, that's the gist of it. And then we'll come over here and look at my ridiculously sick tube collection, which is a problem. Each one of them, each box is a different type of tube. And they all make different sounds. It's definitely a rabbit hole that I advise people not to get into. But if they do, hit me up. I can help you out because there's huge learning curves to this whole thing. And that's my workbench over there. And then we're back. So that's a little quick tour of the Soundcave. Can't really see, very quick, very brief. My vinyl collection is in the next room. I'm not going to bore you with that, but definitely getting bigger and more extensive by the week. Whenever I see something that catches my eye, or an album that I realize that it's an album that I love from start to finish, I usually end up sourcing it. I try to stay away from Amazon these days. Now I've been using Discogs because you're buying it from small vendors or private collections, and the shipping's a little bit longer, and it might cost you a few extra bucks, but you sacrifice the convenience of Amazon to get an actually decent piece of vinyl that's not warped or dirty or scratched, because I find a lot of the times the Amazon sellers, it's a disappointment sometimes when the vinyl arrives and you're like, what? I just bought this. How is it freaking warped? So that's one tip that you can take away from buying vinyl. Go to record shops, if you got to buy online, go with Discogs. For the most part, Amazon is like, you know, you get what you pay for, definitely. I think that's everything that I'm going to go over today. I just wanted to throw out a quick video. I'm at 20 minutes now. It's usually about people's attention span. But if you guys have any questions about home audio setups, home theater setups, vinyl questions, you name it, if it has to do with audio equipment, or if you just want to talk about music, hit me or Mike up on the Melomaniacs Facebook page. And with that, I'm out, guys. See ya.